Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your source material and distill it into powerful insights. Today, we're embarking on a truly unique deep dive into ancient wisdom, specifically a collection of dialogues that profoundly shaped an entire philosophical and spiritual tradition. Imagine a teaching so radical, it challenges the very notion of you.
That's right. We're exploring foundational insights from what's known as the Pali Canon. These aren't just abstract texts. They're records of direct conversations where a profound teaching unfolds. They offer really a powerful method for understanding the very nature of existence.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive, let's unpack the core questions posed in these dialogues, understand the pretty radical conclusions they reach, and most importantly, explore what these ancient teachings might mean for your experience of the world right now. Get ready, this might just change how you look at, well, everything. So to really dig into this, the texts often start with this strikingly consistent series of penetrating questions. They're posed to a disciple named Rahula. The format feels almost like a guided investigation, very systematic.
It's incredibly systematic, yeah.
Yeah.
In essence, you have the same three fundamental questions applied again and again to various aspects of existence. So for example, when looking at our senses, your eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, Rahula's asked, is this permanent or impermanent?
Right.
Then if it's impermanent, is it suffering or is it pleasure?
Right.
And then the real kicker, if this thing is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change, is it really fit to be regarded as, this is mine, this I am, this is myself?
And Rahula's answers are always the same, aren't they? Impermanent, sir, suffering, sir, and no, sir. That repetition, it really hammers home a point. Why do you think they emphasize that simple, consistent reply so much?
Well, it's about more than just sort of intellectual agreement. The repetition is designed to cultivate a deep, almost visceral insight. It's not just asserting a philosophy. It's more like a guide for direct observation. You're invited, really, to see this truth for yourself over and over in every single part of your experience.
Okay, that makes sense. So this pattern then gets systematically applied across a huge range of phenomena. Can you maybe walk us through the breadth of what they examine?
Absolutely. It starts with our direct sensory experience. So not just the things we see or hear, but the actual act of seeing and hearing itself.
Yeah.
Then it turns the lens inward, scrutinizing the feelings that arise from these contacts, whether they feel pleasant, unpleasant, or just neutral. Then it moves on to how we perceive and label things, recognition, basically. And then even to our mental choices or impulses, what we might call volitions or intentions.
Volitions, like the what next after you perceive something.
Exactly, that urge, that intention that arises.
Fascinating. So it's not just the external world, but the whole inner process of how we engage with it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop there. The inquiry also extends to our cravings. The desires, the thirst that arises for all these different phenomena. It even includes the fundamental elements we think we're made of. Earth, water, fire, wind, space, and consciousness itself. And finally, it thoroughly examines the five aggregates, the components that constantly change but create the illusion of a fixed person.
Right, the aggregates, form, feeling.
Perception, mental habits or volitional formations, and consciousness. It's like seeing yourself not as some solid statue, but more like a dynamic, ever-flowing river.
So across all these categories, from our basic senses to the most abstract bits of our mind, even the elements, the conclusion is always the same. They're impermanent, they lead to suffering, and therefore you can't really claim them as mine or myself. That feels incredibly counterintuitive, though, especially today when we're constantly told to find ourselves or own our identity. How does realizing not self actually lead to peace? Doesn't it risk feeling, nihilistic?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? And what's so profound here is how comprehensive the inquiry is. It's not about denying that you exist in some way. It's about demonstrating through your own observation that nothing we perceive or experience is stable or permanently satisfying or truly ours in some fixed, unchanging way. The peace comes from letting go of that exhausting effort, that constant, often frustrating attempt to control or cling to what is inherently unstable. It actually dismantles the very mechanism of suffering.
Okay, I see. So it's the clinging that causes the suffering, and seeing the impermanence helps let go of the clinging.
Exactly. And this rigorous examination isn't just, an intellectual game.
Yeah.
The texts repeatedly conclude with the practical outcome of this deep understanding. They say, seeing thus, Rahula, the instructed noble disciple becomes disenchanted with, Being disenchanted, he becomes dispassionate. Through dispassion, he is liberated.
Right, let's talk about that disenchantment. It sounds a bit negative, doesn't it? A bit gloomy. But you're saying it's actually key to liberation. Can you help unpack that paradox a bit?
It's a critical point, absolutely. Disenchantment here isn't some cynical turning away from life. It's more like a clear-sighted realization, a profound disillusionment, but specifically with the illusion of permanence and a solid self within things that are inherently fleeting. When you see things as they truly are impermanent, not truly self, the spell is broken.
The spell is broken. I like that.
Yeah, you become dispassionate. Now, this doesn't mean indifferent or uncaring, but rather free from that compulsive grasping or pushing away, aversion. And from this dispassion, this kind of non-clinging, you are liberated.
And the texts describe this liberation with incredible clarity, something like, with liberation, there is the knowledge. Liberated, he understands. Birth is destroyed. The holy life has been lived. What was to be done has been done. There is no more for the state of being. That sounds like a profound and complete freedom from suffering. Is this presented as something that can truly be achieved, like, in this life?
Yes, absolutely. It's not just some far-off, hopeful ideal. It's presented as an achievable state. It's the cessation of the cycle of suffering, right here and now. By fundamentally changing how one relates to all experience, it suggests a real transformation that frees you from the anxiety and dissatisfaction that inevitably come from clinging to impermanent things.
Okay. So the first part of this deep dive systematically deconstructs, well, everything we experience. But the texts don't just stop there, do they? They seem to move into how we relate to these fleeting experiences. That feels like where the real work begins for most of us.
Exactly. The later sections, in the Dutya take this inquiry even further. They address specific questions about how our mind creates what's called I-making, mind-making, and conceit.
Can you break those down a bit? I-making, mind-making.
Sure. Think of I-making as that subtle, often unconscious assumption that there's a solid, unchanging me inside, kind of pulling the strings. The sense of a fixed self. Mind-making is when we clutch onto things, possessions, relationships, status, even ideas, believing they define us, that they are fundamentally mine.
Right.
And conceit here isn't just vanity. It's that persistent comparing mind feeling superior, inferior, or even equal based on that constructed sense of self.
Got it. So the solution to all this I-making and mind-making, it really just boils down to applying that core understanding we already explored.
That's exactly it. The response is a direct application of those insights we discussed. It states that one truly knows and sees when they understand that whatever form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, or consciousness, whether past, future, present, internal, external, gross, subtle, inferior, superior, far, or near all of it, is not mine, not I, not myself. And crucially, this isn't just believing it. It's seeing it directly with right wisdom.
Right wisdom. It sounds like just knowing this intellectually isn't enough, is it? There's a much deeper internalization required. How do these texts suggest one actually achieves that shift, beyond just, nodding along?
It's really about constant, rigorous self-inquiry and moment-to-moment observation.
Yeah.
The texts reinforce this by asking how one's mind can become truly free from these tendencies, how it can transcend, measure, become tranquil, become well-liberated. And the answer is always that same profound realization. By truly seeing all these aspects of existence as not mine, not I, not myself, one becomes liberated without clinging. It implies an ongoing practice, a moment-to-moment noticing of how the mind attaches, and then gently, persistently letting go.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, what stands out most to you about how these ancient teachings apply to our lives today right now?
Well, what's truly powerful, I think, is that these texts offer a practical method, a way to dismantle the very root of suffering, as this tradition understands it, our deeply ingrained habits of identifying with things and clinging to them. In a world that's just saturated with information, where we're constantly encouraged, even pressured, to define ourselves by what we own, what we consume, what we achieve.
Yeah, definitely.
This ancient teaching offers a radically different path, a counter-perspective. It suggests that true peace, real contentment, comes not from gaining more or building a stronger self, but actually from letting go of the illusion of a fixed self in the midst of what is inherently unstable and always changing. It's about finding freedom by realizing you don't need to hold on to anything so tightly to be whole.
Wow, what a deep dive indeed. From dissecting our senses and thoughts all the way to the fundamental elements of existence, these ancient Pali texts offer such a consistent and frankly profound message. Impermanence, suffering, and the liberating truth of not self. It's a powerful framework for understanding our experience and maybe finding a different kind of freedom.
It really highlights that path, doesn't it? That a true, deep understanding of reality can lead you from disenchantment with what's fleeting
Hmm.
to dispassion towards what can't ultimately satisfy, and then ultimately to a profound liberation from suffering itself.
So for you, our listener, maybe consider this. How might applying this kind of rigorous inquiry, even just to one small aspect of your daily experience, perhaps a strong emotion that keeps coming up or a persistent thought pattern, or maybe even how your identity feels wrapped up in your job or a relationship, how might looking at it through this lens begin to shift your perspective on what truly brings lasting contentment?